Hello and welcome to episode 2.5, I guess, of this ongoing devlog series. In this devlog series, I'm trying to make and release a game within 12 months. Now, you're not having deja vu. Episode 2 of this devlog series had already gone up and it was on the channel for a few days. But I've decided to re-record it, and I'll go into a bit more detail as to why kind of later on. It'll kind of become apparent. But yeah, that video was up and this is re-record. Now, in that video that was up on the channel, I said I couldn't release my game on Steam, which at the time was true. And that was due to my contract at work. And I want to kind of go through the bit of the contract and then kind of explain what's happened since that video went up, and kind of how I came to re-record this video. So I'm gonna read from my notes here. So the exact wording in the contract was: you agree that you will not, without the prior written consent of the company, be engaged, employed, or concerned in any of the business, trade, profession, or other activity other than your employment with the company, whether inside or outside of your normal hours of work. In the event that such consent is given, you accept that you shall be personally responsible for ensuring that you have sufficient rest breaks and rest periods in your working week, and that you do not put your health or safety or that of others at risk by overworking. In the event that there is actual or potential conflict of interest between your outside activities and your work for the company, you must disclose this immediately, and the company reserves the right to withdraw consent to you being engaged with such activity. Now, stuff like my YouTube channel and my Patreon and my hobby dev stuff, I'm quite open about that at work. They've allowed me to do that. But I don't think I went into the right amount of detail in that last video to properly reflect the situation. And that's because I didn't fully understand it myself. And I've had some clarification since that video went live as to kind of how this section of the contract is actually relating to what I'm trying to do. And since that video went up, I've spoken again with my boss. We had a video chat and we've cleared up the issues that I had with kind of where we were initially, and some of the stuff that I'd said in the comments, in replies to the comments. I think where this all stemmed from was the just miscommunication and then lack of communication. So the miscommunication was that I asked permission to do this over our internal Slack kind of chat. So it was all just written chat, and it was in the lead up to Christmas, and we were just putting a big patch out for one of the games. So I don't think enough time and thought went into kind of what was going on from either me or my boss, just because of the nature of how busy we were. So that was kind of the lack of communication. We maybe should have drilled into the actual specifics of this a little bit more. And the lack of communication was from the outcome that we originally reached about what I said, that if I'd have to quit or reduce my hours or whatever to do this and put my game on Steam, instead of, coming online and venting in a video and in the comments, I should have just gone back to my boss and said, no, I'm not completely happy with this, or I don't understand this. Can we come to some sort of agreement? So specifically what the issue here is that releasing my game on Steam is a conflict of interest for my role at the company. But how exactly? And again, I've written some stuff down just so I can fully kind of articulate what I'm talking about. So my role at the company is as a product marketing manager. So what that means is I oversee the product marketing for numerous games. We're a very small independent video game developer and also publisher. And a lot of marketing for indie games is just last minute panic when you see an event pop up on Steam and you know that your game should be in that event. So you try and call in some favors with the organizers, or, you bookmark it for next year when it runs again. And obviously there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of stuff that I've learned on the job at work, and we've developed tools and ways to kind of find opportunities to market our indie games. So as a specific example as to how me releasing my game on Steam could cause a conflict of interest is that, say there was a cozy games event on Steam, right? And I'd submit whichever of our company games fit the bill. So say we've got two games that we'd consider cozy and we're trying to put them into this event. So if this game that I'm making is a cozy game as well, and it's a fit for this event, I would probably want to stick my game in it as well. But these events are limited in spaces, and I'm directly discussing the event with industry contacts, And if there's, if I put forward 2 of our games plus my separate game, whether it's in a separate email or just like an in-person conversation, there's a chance there that they see my game and see the 2 that I've put forward for work. I could squeeze 1 in, 2 would be a favor. So I'll put in this one from like work, one of the work games, and my personal game into the event. And that steals the opportunity potentially from the other game that I would have put forward for the event. Now, that's just one example, and maybe it makes more sense if you actually work in the industry as to how much calling in favors from people actually helps when it comes to these events. That's why networking is massively important. But there is a solution to this that we're going to try to work out in the new year, hopefully. And this solution came from me explaining a bit more to my boss what exactly I wanted from this game. Like, I'm not this game is going to be made in 6 months. It's not going to be massive. I'm not going to sell it for a lot of money. That's not the point. Well, it is the point. A point is to make money from this, whether that's from YouTube or Patreon or sales on Steam. But like why I want to put this game on Steam is my primary marketing thing, other than sort of like events like Next Fest and stuff like that, is to put the link in the description of these monthly videos, and then I can tell you guys, hey, it's here. Go wishlist it. Once it's out, buy it, and it's really easy to get, and I can still offer it through Patreon. If you subscribe at any of the top 2 tiers at any point, I was going to give keys away from the game. That's really good for distribution, having your game on Steam that way. So we're going to come to some sort of agreement, and it's up in the air. It was just discussed verbally. There's nothing in writing yet. But as an example, as like a blanket rule, I can't put the game can be on Steam, but I can't put it into any event that I would submit or I have submitted work games into, which is perfectly fair enough. And that's just a blanket rule, but then on a case-by-case basis, if I think, I can do it and, I can ask permission to do it, and they may or may not give it me based on like whatever factors they come to. So yeah, and again, this is all fresh. There's nothing in writing. I don't know exactly how this is going to pan out. But the kind of positive side of this is that I should hopefully be able to have a link and an actual store page and have my game up on Steam, where people can go and wishlist it. So we'll see where that goes, but it is positive news. And now, I guess, in the last video, I said that this whole situation had kind of put a cloud over this project, but now it's caused such a fuss that I need to finish this project. Like, this project might not have even got finished. Like, if it's judging by like my bin of all my old dead projects, I probably wouldn't have finished this game, but now I have to, because it's caused such a bit of grief kind of in life that it'd be stupid not to actually finish it now. So it's gone the other way, and this kind of the motivation to do it, to make this whole hassle worth it. So where does that actually leave this project? Like, where are we now with this project? So if I go over to Milano and log back in. Okay, so here we are in Milano, and I ticked these off in the last video. It's now delisted. So I was deciding on an art style. I'd got custom spirit animations, and I did the first devlog. Now in this month, I've been working on artwork, and I have done the month-end devlog, and I'm re-recording it. So uncheck and check that again. Why not? I didn't do a lot of artwork, as I explained in the last video. I kind of, because of the issues that were coming up, I stopped working on the game for just a little bit. But now I've been doing a bit more, so we've got some artwork in place now and kind of the building implementations. I'm going to have to move these over to January. See, this is already getting shifted quite a bit. This March, I don't know, up in the air, whether if I do get permission, whether I'll be ready in time to even do a store page in March. Maybe that'll be a bit later on. But for now, for the actual game, my focus is going to be on catching up with the artwork that I'd been wanting to do, and then doing stuff like, I want buildings where the spirits can go inside the building and do whatever, like hang out in there. So there's going to have to be some technology for the roof to kind of fade or go invisible when creatures are inside. That's fine. And I want to do sound effects and music. I doubt I'm going to get to that in January. What I might do is do the artwork, do the UI, and then do sound effects and music. And then after that, this is all kind of up in the air. It already was anyway. It was mainly going to be like setting up the store page and doing things like that. So yeah, so like, where is the actual game now? Like, what's the game, like, where's the gameplay at? What does it look like? What's going on? I'm going to cut back to the old video just so there's no point in re-recording that bit. It's really interesting. There's a good poetry recital coming up, which I bet you weren't expecting, and I reveal the name of the game as well. Okay, so here's the game currently in the editor. We've got, it plays from a top-down perspective, so it's kind of viewed, from this sort of angle. But I was just doing a couple of kind of art tests. So we've got the trees, which, I'm not an artist really at all in any way, shape or form. So, this isn't the best, but it was a rough kind of pass. And I wanted to just try and decide on the art style, which I think I've got, and I'm going to revisit a lot of this. This was just to kind of, get things implemented into the game. So you will remember in the old devlog, they would, the spirits would approach on a train, get off, and then like wander around, and they will look like flame dudes, flame-looking guys. Now I've actually changed them, so they're little woodland spirits. And if we start the game, you can see the title that I've decided on for the game too. So the game is called Beneath the Boughs. So originally I mentioned it being like a working title, and what the project is called up here is Spirit Spa, but that was a bit too close to a game called Spirit Tea, and I was always going to change the name. Then I thought, well, if these are like little woodland spirits, maybe the whole thing is about just restoring basically like a nice version of Center Parcs. And for those who don't know what Center Parcs is, it's a holiday resort in the UK, and I think there's a couple maybe in Europe, but like just a non-rubbish version of Center Parcs, but for spirits instead. So with that in mind, I found this poem, and it's public domain, by someone, William Henry Davies. It's called Leisure. But yeah, the poem is, "What is this life if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare? No time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows. No time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see in broad daylight streams full of stars like skies at night. No time to burn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. Poor life this is, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare." There's this line, beneath the boughs, going through this like spirit retreat, and this like foresty like retreat. And this poem is about, just taking a breather. Like, what is life if we just have no time to stand and stare and kind of absorb the kind of beauty around us? And I thought that was quite a nice little name. So yeah, that's the name I've settled on for the game. And you can see the little spirit guy here. If we start a new game, you'll see as the train comes in at 6 a.m. So spirits will get off, and they're just, wandering around, and they'll pick somewhere to go and do an activity. So it looks like one's heading over to the yoga mat and one's heading over to have a drink of coffee. So now, based on, what's going on, which building they go to, they do a range of animations. This is actually using a plugin called Animancer, which allows you to do this and just play an animation asset. Yeah. Obviously, it's not fully implemented. He doesn't actually fire an arrow. But yeah, Animancer Lite, it's a very cool plugin. You can just play animations kind of as and when you want to. You can't actually do that by default within Unity, annoyingly. That doesn't seem to be an option. But yeah, so they're now wandering around, and eventually, once they're happy enough, they've generated enough happiness, they're relaxed and they're ready to move on, they'll wait for the next, they'll come over here, wait for the next train, and then be taken off, and a new load of spirits will move on. So, 2 months into the project, for this to all be working, I'm quite happy with how that is all sort of panning out. The actual art process has been quite interesting, of how I've been kind of getting my process together. So there's a bit of a time lapse here of me making this coffee stand. I start by modeling it in Blender, and then depending on the complexity of the object, so with the yoga mat, for example, I just UV unwrapped it, took it straight into Photoshop. But with the coffee stand, just to lay down the base colors, I've been using 3D coat, and not necessarily to paint in, but just to lay down the colors and kind of like on the UV island. So then when I go into Photoshop, it's just easier to see what I've been working on. And then with Photoshop, I can just save what I'm doing, go back in 3D Coat, and it instantly updates, and I can see kind of in real time what I have just done and see it on the 3D model. And I don't need to export textures and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this little stand. We've got the coffee cups. Obviously, very low resolution, but it's it's for viewing at kind of this angle. We have the Spirit Railway, which, as you saw on the in the main menu, it has a carriage, and obviously this is all just painted on. There's no geometry to it, just very low geometry. Yeah, and I think I'll revisit the train station, but I quite like, I've got the tactile paving and the stones and the train. I quite like that. And I'm even quite happy with the trees. I don't like this. I don't like this like jaggy, wibbly, like harsh cutoff. But, you know, these were just, I wanted them in just so I could see kind of what they'd look like and have something that wasn't, you know, a building necessarily in the game. So yeah, that's how this all looks and works currently. Okay, so that was long and rambly, as all my videos tend to be. I hope that clears some stuff up from the last video. We're in a better position than we were in that last video. And again, just communicate with people. Don't vent on the internet. Just if you're not happy with something, go back to the person that made you unhappy and explain, no, wait, that's not right. And try to come to some sort of conclusion that way. I think that's just good life advice. But yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great new year, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.